report, and it stated that the Winstanley estate was in the worst 1% of places to grow up in Britain as a child. And we see that, people's outcomes in terms of education, the jobs they get, their health and so on. So it's been neglected for a long time, and this investment is dearly needed. So yeah, we were very pleased when we got a deal with the council, which at that time I think was the best deal anywhere in London on estate regeneration in terms of everyone, whether they're a council tenant or leaseholder, gets a guaranteed home in the new development. So there's complete replacement of the existing affordable housing. There's no loss of green space. So York Gardens, the park, there'll be an area that large, and also the regeneration will deliver a new church, a new leisure centre, a new school for that area. So that was a good deal, and that was backed by the majority of local people. Then that sort of moved through master planning stages, and I'm afraid what started to happen was, as always happens in these things, more and more full price housing was added, but not affordable housing. And we've got to the stage now where the replacement of the original affordable housing is really being seen as a maximum rather than the minimum. So I'm afraid they're only adding 3 extra council houses, even though 2,500 new homes are being built. And we still remain very supportive of this regeneration. It's just we think the Tory council has got a bad deal, because for decades they've put the interests of property developers over the interests of local people, and we think they should look again at this deal.
Mm-hmm. Is it true that the council had plans to close the library and the sports centre nearby as well, and that you've led a campaign to stop that happening?
Yeah, we'll always stand up for local people, and I should say I'm a councillor for Latchmere Ward, where the Winstanley estate is, and back in 2011, the council announced plans to close York Gardens Library, and with colleagues, I led the community campaign that helped to keep that library open, and then, almost unbelievably, the council tried to close the sports centre that serves the Winstanley estate as well. And again, the community came together, and we stopped that from happening. And now I'm afraid the children's centre on the estate is also facing cuts. So again, the community there, and there is a strong existing community, is pulling together to try and protect its community facilities.
I want to move on to the Living Wage Foundation. Now, they recently announced that the London living wage rate would be increasing from £10.20 to £10.55 per hour. You've been very much at the forefront in campaigning for Wandsworth Council to become an accredited London living wage employer. Tell us how that's progressing at the moment, because the issue of the living wage is certainly becoming there's far more awareness about the living wage amongst many businesses up and down the country, and there are a number of councils already paying the living wage, but tell us where that stands at the moment.
Yeah, so this is a really important campaign, because Wandsworth's a fantastic place to live, but it's no longer the most affordable place to live, in terms of housing, but also the things that we need to travel to work and feed our children and so on. So the great thing about the living wage is it's not saying what's the minimum we can possibly pay this person to do this job. It's actually saying, what does someone need to actually be able to live that basic lifestyle? And in London, that's been calculated. Sadiq Khan recently announced it, £10.55 an hour. Now, Wandsworth Labour believes that all council workers, whether they're staff or whether they're contractors, should be paid that London living wage. Now, Wandsworth Conservatives disagree with that. It's quite a difficult discussion, because they're one of the most right-wing councils in the country. They just don't have the same view that we do about the sort of rights that workers should enjoy. So the week before last was Living Wage Week, so we were running a campaign to raise awareness London living wage, Battersea Flower Station, for instance, a wonderful flower shop, garden centre, and several other local businesses that we went to, and they report that you just get happier staff, better productivity, better services for the customers, lower turnover, and all round it's just a more civilised way of a hard day's work deserves a fair day's pay.
Mm-hmm. Let us move on to crime, and just to let you know that we've had a number of listeners post some questions on our Raiders Reaction page. This comes from Marcia Coombs in Battersea, who'd like to know what your views are on the increase in knife crime, and what does Labour intend to do about the problem. There's been a terrible spate of stabbings recently, not just in London but up and down the country. What's Labour's proposal to deal with this?
Yeah, it's been appalling recently, actually, and the crime we've been closest to was the murder of Ian Tomlin on the Doddington estate, which I don't know if you know the details, but was a sort of horrible case of a sort of man who worked for the council and sort of came home, and it appears he was trying to clear some people off from outside his home and was murdered. And
so I remember reading about it. Yes,
it could happen anywhere in our community. So we've along with the local MP Marcia de Cordova and the local councillors there in Queenstown Ward, have been out listening to local people, at public meetings, at advice sessions, and knocking on doors. There's still incredibly raw feelings about that crime, but also the situation in that neighbourhood where they feel, there aren't enough police visible. After a crime like this, they say there's no crime for a couple of days when the police swarm onto the neighbourhood, but then afterwards it returns to normal. They'd like a lot more CCTV for areas on the estate, just do better design. People can't get access to the stairwells. They can't sort of hide in dark corners. They can't sort of come into the actual corridors themselves, which should be, a space where local people can feel safe. And also, there's real concern that the council, without proper consultation and over the wishes of local people, is trying to open a drug centre on that estate, sort of only yards away from that crime. And there's a really very strong feeling from local people that should be put on pause. And I think the sort of pressure from the local MP and also from the councillors has succeeded, and that the council is now pausing that project. And I hope the council will reconsider and actually say what that should be as a community facility. Because, of course, people, as well as wanting more safety and more police to deter and detect the crime, they also want more community facilities.
Yes.
To bring people together, to give younger people and older people something to do, to create that sense of community.
Yes,
so
more
will create a proper community hub there in the Doddington Square.
That's right, more amenities and facilities. Simon, we're almost out of time. I'd like to end on a positive note. Tell us about the Wandsworth Civic Awards. Now, this is an initiative in which unsung heroes in the borough who voluntarily give their time to help local groups, for example, to the Scouts and the Guides, and also to Battersea Dogs Home and other sort of voluntary organisations. How long has this been running?
Oh, wow. So I'm not sure where the Civic Awards started. It certainly goes back longer than I've been on Wandsworth Council, but it is a fantastic evening out. This is where we celebrate the unsung heroes, the people who give their time, the poppy sellers, people who volunteer for residents' associations, special constables, wonderful people from Wandsworth Older People's Forum, the people who run the Scouts and the Guides, often for decades, with a lot of hassle and not always with the thanks and with no monetary reward. And it's just lovely, actually, just a really nice evening where sort of they're all recognised. We have a few winners and photos, and then we all get to sort of chat and mingle afterwards. But yeah, it's a real highlight of being a councillor.
Community spirit at its best, absolutely. Simon, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to catch up with you again in the not too distant future.
Great, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much indeed. That was my special guest. Simon Hogg. He is the leader of the Labour group on Wandsworth Council. We're going to squeeze in a few more before I depart, I think. What do we have next? A one-hit wonder from the Aces.